questions. Question orale. L'honorable député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
Monsieur le Président, le gouvernement libéral.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government bought itself a majority to protect its leader until 2025. The NDP sold its soul to ensure the survival of the Liberal government. And now the NDP today is ready to leave its heart on the table, officially renouncing its role as an opposition party. There's still time for NDP MPs to keep a little dignity and say no to the Liberal whip by voting no on Motion 11. Will the Liberal whip allow the NDP MPs a free vote?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Motion 11 is all about extending the hours to enable members of Parliament to debate more. That's an open invitation for all members, whether you're a New Democrat, Conservative, or member of the Bloc, or even a member of the government. It provides each member an opportunity to be able to speak past 6:30 in the evening, like millions of other Canadians do, Mr. Speaker. They work past 6:30 too.
All right, so far, question one. L'honorable député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
Premier ministre a été le premier chef en exercice d'un gouvernement.
The Prime Minister was the first sitting head of a federal government to be found guilty of not following the law. The Prime Minister fired his Justice Minister, Jody Wilson-Raybould, for not listening to his instructions on the SNC-Lavalin file. He bought himself some NDP MPs so that he wouldn't be held accountable for his actions in the Winnipeg lab scandal. The RCMP documents show that he came within a hair's breadth of a fraud charge for an illegal gift. Who in this government is going to stand up and say enough is enough?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nothing has changed in the last 6 years where we have seen the Conservative Party, the official opposition, take personal attacks against whether it's the Prime Minister or other ministers. While the Conservative Party remains focused on personal attacks, I can assure the House that the ministries of this government will continue to work day in and day out for the betterment of all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
C'est une excuse pathétique qui ne tient pas la route, Monsieur le Président.
That's a lame excuse that doesn't hold water. We're dealing with a specific situation where the Prime Minister admitted neither he nor anyone else authorized him to receive an illegal gift. Time doesn't erase the past. Just think of victims of crime who wait years to report their attackers. Is the Deputy Leader telling them to keep quiet and not say anything about these criminal acts? Why has the Minister of Justice already asked the RCMP to reopen the investigation?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that the government remain focused on the job at hand. As the Conservatives, as I say, want to continue to have personal attacks against the different ministers of this government, we will continue to remain focused on the economy, on making life better for all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Secretary can sit here and be part of a government cover-up, and that's why this morning I again wrote to the RCMP Commissioner regarding the RCMP's criminal brief on the investigation into the Prime Minister's $215,000 private island vacation. The criminal brief says the RCMP deferred to the Ethics Commissioner's interpretation of the Prime Minister's actions were not criminal in nature. However, we now know from the news the former Commissioner, Mary Dawson, was unfamiliar with the criminal code offence of fraud against the government. She had no interpretation to give. So has the Prime Minister spoken to the RCMP in the last week about his criminal behaviour?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, I think it's important to recognize, even before the Prime Minister was the Prime Minister, even before he was the leader of the Liberal Party, Conservative members always had personal attacks against the Prime Minister. Ever since we've been in government, their focus has been character assassination. While they want to focus on that, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to focus on programs that matter. And an excellent example of that is the National Child Care Program, Mr. Speaker, a program that is serving Canadians in every region of our nation today.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
The Prime Minister should really answer these questions. He can run, but he can't hide from the law. The RCMP deference to the retired Commissioner Dawson was asserted as one of the justifications for why it was not in the public interest to pursue a criminal investigation. But now, all of the public interest arguments by the RCMP for not pursuing charges have been undone in the past week. It is in the public interest for Canadians to know the Prime Minister is not above the law. So will the Prime Minister and his staff cooperate with the RCMP in this investigation of fraud on the government by the Prime Minister?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, what we're witnessing is an ongoing continuation of political theatrics from the Conservative Party. You know, 3 leaders ago they were talking about this, Mr. Speaker. At the end of the day, as I've pointed out in the previous questions, is that they can continue. They can do what they want with their focus. What I can assure Canadians, Mr. Speaker, is that this government, whether it's the Prime Minister, other cabinet ministers, or the Liberal caucus as a whole, will continue to focus our attention on making life better for all Canadians in every region of this nation.